Now that the NFL draft is over, let's go over some fantasy targets you can find out for your team of who was drafted in the second round of the NFL draft. All right, so the first guy we're talking about here is going to be Will Levis. Now, he was seen as a top-level type of quarterback coming into the draft. Some are even saying first overall, but he was mostly being mocked between the first and the fourth round. And he fell all the way out of the first round, ended up going back into the Tennessee Titans for the second round. Many thought the Titans would trade up to grab Will Levis, but they ended up being able to get him in the second round, and we'll kind of have to see how it goes. Ryan Tannehill is in probably the last year he's going to be in Tennessee, so they're going to end up giving Will Levis an opportunity to play, most likely mid to late season. If the Tennessee Titans aren't doing very well, they're probably just going to throw Will Levis in and see what they have. They've already pretty much threw Malik Willis down the toilet. I mean, he came in last year for 2 games, and Malik Willis didn't even know how to throw the ball. It was kind of awful what we saw there. So now they're kind of giving Will Levis the opportunity here. He's got a cannon for an arm, absolute cannon. Decision making is a little bit questionable for me. He didn't have a very good offensive line in Kentucky. He started his whole college career at Penn State, ended up losing the job over there, so he had to transfer over to Kentucky. So my first kind of question I have is, why was he not good enough to win the job at Penn State? And second off, I mean, is he really going to be able to have what it takes to compete in the NFL? Yes, he has a rocket arm, but just because you have a rocket arm don't mean you're going to be successful in the NFL. You have to be able to read your progressions, go through your reads and see what's going on. Let's go ahead and go over to the depth chart here. As we see, I do have Ryan Tannehill right now slated. Ahead of him on the depth chart, I do have Will Levis ahead of Malik Willis as of right now. Being that second guy and being the first guy to get a crack at if they let Ryan Tannehill sit. They definitely have their Derrick Henry and Tajay Spears, another guy that they drafted, with Treylon Burks, Nick Westbrook, Kyle Phillips, and then Chigo is going to be the starting tight end this year. They also got another rookie, Josh Weil, as well. We'll talk about him in a later video. But as far as Will Levis goes, I mean, it's kind of a wait and see type of approach that we're going to have to see from Will Levis. He has the tools to be able to be a good deep ball thrower, but other than that, I need to be able to see him go through his progressions. If it's something that he doesn't like, he needs to be able to check it down to his running back and not just take off with his legs. He is pretty powerful when he's able to run the ball. He could definitely give you some fantasy upside as far as the rushing ability goes, but I want to see him progress more as a natural quarterback before I can suggest to draft him in any type of leagues. Dynasty leagues, I would draft very, very late. I'm not excited to have Will Levis. I don't think that he's going to have the type of NFL career that I know a lot of people may like for Will Levis. They just look at his arm and think he's going to be some type of amazing type of playmaker, but I just don't see that from Will Levis. Like I said, he wasn't able to get it done at Penn State, and it wasn't much better at Kentucky. It's just his offensive line didn't give him much time to do anything. So he may have a little bit better of an offensive line here in Tennessee, but his decision making is something that's still a question mark for me. So we're gonna go over to the very next pick at 34 overall. We have Sam Laporta. Now, I really do like this tight end that the Lions was able to get. They had a big hole that they needed to fill, and I think Sam Laporta definitely can do that for him. Brock Wright was the tight end that was going to be slated to start, but I think Sam Laporta, just based on the draft capital and his skill set, I think he's definitely going to be the starting tight end here. But let's go ahead and look at this at the depth chart level. And as you see at the very bottom, Sam Laporta, I do have him ahead of Brock Wright right now. Quarterback Jared Goff should be the quarterback. He did really good last year. He should be the quarterback, at least for a year or two. Jared Goff, they should be able to let Jared Goff go next year if they want to save them a lot of cap space. But they did get Hendon Hooker as well. They also drafted the big guy, Jahmyr Gibbs. We talked about him in the previous video. He's going to be the main guy. They let DeAndre Swift, they traded him over there to the Eagles. And they also acquired David Montgomery in the offseason to kind of pair up with Jahmyr Gibbs. I think that'll be a good little 1-2 punch combo they got there. Jameson Williams suspended for the first few games of the regular season. I'm on Ross St. Brown. We know what he can do with Josh Reynolds and Marvin Jones. But Sam Laporta, I think, if just looking at this roster, he should probably be the third fiddle here. And the fourth fiddle if you count Jahmyr Gibbs coming here and getting a lot of targets. But Jameson Williams, I'm on Ross St. Brown should definitely be leading the target share. And then Sam Laporta, a good receiving tight end, somebody that I would definitely recommend you getting in your fantasy drafts. And I don't think you'd be complaining if you got him on your fantasy roster. In a couple years, I know it takes a little bit for tight ends to develop, but I think in a couple years, Sam Laporta could be up there in the top 3 type of tight ends conversation. He's that good. So let's go to the next picker here at 35. We're going to talk about another tight end in Michael Mayer. Michael Mayer, he ended up being drafted by the Raiders. They had another big hole to fill after they let Darren Waller go over to the Giants. Jimmy Garoppolo is the new quarterback in town here. Let's look at the fantasy depth chart here. So we look at this. Jimmy Garoppolo is definitely the starter now, taking over for Derek Carr. They got a rookie in Aiden O'Connell, which I actually don't mind too much of Aiden O'Connell, but I mean, we're going to have to see if he can develop as well. But Jimmy Garoppolo should be able to get the job done. Josh Jacobs, obviously one of the best running backs in football last year based on yardage. They still got Devontae Adams here, and they acquired Jacoby Meyer coming over from New England. Hunter Renfrow, a good slot receiver. Trey Tucker, somebody they drafted, not too bad. We'll talk about him in a later video. But Michael Mayer, he's a really good run blocker, probably the best run blocker in this draft class that I saw, which is going to help him have more opportunities on the field. When you have a tight end that not only can catch but also can pass block, can run block, he's going to get more opportunities to be on the field. Yeah, Austin Hooper is there as well, but I think Michael Mayer, just based on the draft capital, I think they went ahead and put him probably as the number 1 tight end on this roster. He's not somebody that's going to be like a Sam Laporta or anything like that, going to kind of wow you with his athleticism. But Michael Mayer, crowning it, he was kind of touted as that baby Gronk in college, and he kind of looks like that to me. He's just a big body type of tight end that can kind of get you a catch. He's not really a yak type of guy, but he can get you a first down, has good enough hands. Obviously not the best pass catcher as far as tight ends go here, but I do like him. I think he's a good pickup for the Raiders. Let's go ahead and go over to the next one here. It's going to be at the number 39. It's going to be Jonathan Mingo. Carolina Panthers grabbed this guy. I think it was a little bit too early to grab Mingo to kind of pair up with Bryce Young there. Let's go ahead and look at the depth chart and we can see what I'm talking about here. I do have obviously Bryce Young being the starting quarterback for the Carolina Panthers, being the number 1 overall pick. They acquired Miles Sanders over here from the Philadelphia Eagles with Chuba Hubbard catching him up. Now, Jonathan Mingo, he's drafted in the 2nd round, and I personally have him slotted in as the number 4 wide receiver. So my thing is, if you're drafting someone in the 2nd round, he's probably not even your top 3 wide receiver, then what are you drafting him this early for? I have Terrace Marshall Jr., DJ Chark, and Adam Thielen all being ahead of him on the depth chart. Now, I could be wrong. I'm just not trying to hate, but I'm just being honest of what my eyes can see as watching his tape in college. He just didn't wow me. He didn't have that, wow, I need to have this fantasy guy on my team. It surprised me of how early he drafted him. Like I said, maybe the Panthers see something that I don't. Maybe he ends up getting into training camp, becoming this receiver that everybody wanted to see. It's kind of have a wait and see approach in that, but as of right now, I do have Jonathan Mingo as number 4th on the depth chart for the Carolina Panthers. Let's go ahead and move it on along to the next pick at number 42. We have the Packers taking Luke Musgrave, and I have to ask myself, what in the hell were they thinking? Luke Musgrave, he stays hurt, right? He stayed hurt for his last season in college, but even when he was on the field, he just didn't show something out there that's saying, hey, this guy needs to be a top pick. I actually like Tucker Kraft, which is somebody they took later on in the draft, and they as the 2nd tight end. I think Tucker Kraft is a better tight end than Luke Musgrave. So there was better options out there for the Packers to be able to take Luke Musgrave. So it's just a big question mark on me. If we look at the depth chart here, Jordan Love is now going to be the quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. He does have the skill set to be semi-successful. I'm just not crazy in love with this guy. I think he will end up losing his job. He has the tools to be successful. I just don't think he can put it all together. I think there was just too much drama facing around Aaron Rodgers. And when he got on the field last season, Jordan Love just, I don't know, he just didn't look good. He was able to take over for Aaron Rodgers a little bit last couple seasons, and I don't know. I just didn't like what I saw for Jordan Love. They did draft Sean Clifford. I think he'll eventually get a crack, but Sean Clifford's not good either. So it is what it is. Feel bad for Aaron Jones. He's the last kind of running back standing over there. He needs to be on another team. Let A.J. Dillon take over for there. Christian Watson, Romeo Dubes, a couple rookie wide receivers last season coming into their second year. And then we have Jaden Reed also being drafted by the team. I'm going to talk about him next. He's actually the next receiver that we're talking about. And then Luke Musgrave. But like I said, I don't like this pick. I don't like Luke Musgrave as a fantasy asset, and I don't like him as an NFL asset. I just don't think that he is going to amount to much on the football field. I would say just steer clear away from Luke Musgrave. Now, the next guy we're going to go over is just go ahead and at number 50, it's going to be the same team here. And we're going to talk about Jayden Reed. Jayden Reed just didn't show me much in college. I think he's more of a kick returner or punt returner. There's just a bunch of question marks surrounding the Packers organization right now of what the hell they were doing for draft day. I did not like their draft pick whatsoever, either whether it was Luke Musgrave or Jayden Reed. I didn't like Sean Clifford, the backup quarterback they ended up getting. I did like Tucker Kraft. I do like him as a tight end spot, but like I said, we'll talk about him in a later video. But I just, when you look at these two guys and you look at Luke Musgrave, you look at Jayden Reed, these are two guys they could have got later on in the draft. Being in the second round, they better use these guys and show everybody that everybody's wrong, because I just don't believe that they're a second round pick, and I don't believe they should be where they are. But I'm going to move it on to the next pick at the 52 overall. And the biggest disappointment I can see for draft day is Zach Charbonnet. Now, Zach Charbonnet taken by the Seattle Seahawks, who already had a stud at running back who they drafted last season. I know everybody took a big old sigh and they were like, oh my gosh, Zach Charbonnet just is going to eat into Kenneth Walker's production. Let's go ahead and look at the depth chart here. Geno Smith will be the quarterback next season. They didn't draft a quarterback to even replace Geno. Drew Lock, oh sorry, I had to puke a little bit. Drew Lock is the second string quarterback. Don't like him whatsoever. Kenneth Walker is supposed to be the main man, but Pete Carroll came on to talk to everybody after the drafts, and he said that they're going to pretty much split their work. And to lead it all out, there's another running back that they drafted, Kenny McIntosh. We'll be talking about him in a later video. Sorry. But Kenny McIntosh is a great running back as well. I think Kenny McIntosh can actually carve out a third down role on this team. So you got Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet splitting the first and second down work, with Kenny McIntosh coming in the third down. What are you going to do for fantasy-wise? I think for football-wise, this is great for the Seahawks. They got themselves 3 nice studs at running back. But for fantasy football, it's a huge headache. Is somebody, Kenneth Walker plummeted on my rankings. It's just, it's very, very upsetting to see what happened to Kenneth Walker. Right, receivers, we talked about that in the last video. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. Another play. I love Jackson Smith and Jigba. 2 of my top prospects coming out in college for fantasy football was Zach Charbonnet and Jackson Smith and Jigba. They both end up with the Seattle Seahawks, and both of them hurt my heart. It's just, I wish there was a better opportunity. Zach Charbonnet maybe going to the Bengals or the Dolphins. Oh man, you would be talking about him at the top of rookie rounds and dynasty picks, but nope. I might as well go to Seattle and hurt not only Zach Charbonnet's value, but you're going to be hurting Kenneth Walker's value. So it's really disappointing to see. It's to the point where I don't even want to talk about it anymore. It's so upsetting. I'm going to just go on to the next one. Let's go to the 55th overall player, and that's going to be Rashee Rice. He was taken by the Chiefs. I actually really like this pick. I liked Rashee Rice. I think he has good hands. He's got the size, and he's 6'1". He's somebody that can come in and be an immediate playmaker for Patrick Mahomes. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, he's got the speed on the outside. Kadarius Toney just can't stay healthy, and we don't know what we have with Sky Moore yet. So I think Rashee Rice can easily be the number one, the X receiver for Patrick Mahomes of the future. He just has to show that he belongs, and I think he can do that. If we look at the depth chart here, obviously we have Patrick Mahomes, we have Isaiah Pacheco and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, which they didn't pick up the 5th-year option for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, so this should be the last season for him. Isaiah Pacheco should be able to lead the ball, lead the run on this team. Like I said, MBS, Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, they are right now, I do have them slotted ahead of Rashee Rice, but I do see Rice at least being the wide receiver 2 on this team behind Marcus Valdez-Scantling, and eventually taking over as the number 1 wide receiver for Patrick Mahomes. And then obviously we have Travis Kelce down there. So overall, Rashee Rice, I think, could be a good option for your fantasy team if you're doing a dynasty startup or in dynasty in general and just doing your rookie drafts. You can definitely grab Rashee Rice probably in the second round of a rookie draft, later on in a dynasty startup draft, and I think you would be surprised of what you can get. I even think in a redraft league, Rashee Rice would be worth grabbing with a later round pick. I think that he has the opportunity of being outstanding, and if he does end up being the X receiver for Patrick Mahomes, that's a very valuable type of position to be in, and Rashee Rice could be somebody that could lead you to victory. So I really like that pick by the Chiefs. So let's go over to the next guy at 58 overall. The Cowboys ended up taking Luke Schoonmaker. Now this guy I really like as well. He's got the hands and the playmaking ability. He's kind of like a like a baby Dalton Schultz, like who they just left the Cowboys and went to the Houston Texans. I think Schoonmaker can make out a huge type of role for himself here. I put him exactly above Jake Ferguson. I never thought Jake Ferguson was going to be the starting tight end for this team. We all knew that they were going to hit into the draft and grab a tight end. I thought they would actually take a tight end a lot earlier, but they ended up not doing that. They landed with Luke Schoonmaker, and they told the press that Luke was their target all along. I don't know if I believe that or not. It's just that people were trading ahead of him, and they were grabbing all the tight ends away from the Cowboys, and that's who they ended up with. So let's look at the depth chart here. We definitely have Dak Prescott as a starting quarterback here. Tony Pollard is going to be the starting running back. They did draft Deuce Vaughn, which we'll talk about him in a later video as well, but I really like him, seeing him as the number 2 running back here, kind of sharing the workload with Tony Pollard. At wide receiver, CeeDee Lamb, the newly acquired Brandon Cooks, and Michael Gallup. And then Luke Schoonmaker, the guy that we're talking about right now, I think is going to be a good fantasy asset for your team. I think he can make almost an immediate impact. Dak Prescott does like to spread the ball around the field, and I think Luke could be decent for fantasy football. He can easily be a top 10, top 15 tight end in his rookie season, and I wouldn't bat an eye at that. I think that would be something that could come to fruition if you take an opportunity and draft him with one of your last picks in the draft. I think he could be a decent play for your fantasy team. Let's go ahead and go to another player here at number 61. Was drafted as Britton Strange from the Jacksonville Jaguars, and then just like his name says, it was kind of strange. I wasn't impressed with this tight end. I think he's a good run blocker. He doesn't really have the size to be a decent pass blocker, but he's got to be able to use his body, and I think that he can learn that to become an even better blocker. His hands, not anything to write home about. I just don't think he's a good pass catcher overall. Not really sure. I think that, again, second round is too early for Britton Strange. I had him as a 4th round draft grade in my personal ranking. So them getting drafted into the second round is kind of a question mark for me. Granted, let's look at the depth chart here. Ahead of Britton Strange, we do have Evan Ingram, who they ended up franchise tagging. Hopefully they can get a long-term deal with Evan Ingram because he was outstanding for the Jaguars last season. Trevor Lawrence definitely going to be the quarterback here. Travis Etienne and the new running back from Auburn, Tank Bigsby, I think is going to be taking over Jermichael Hasty's carries there and being the number 2 running back. Calvin Ridley coming back off a suspension over from the Falcons. Christian Kirk, Zay Jones. They have a good offense. They are loaded. I just don't think Britton Strange is somebody that you can go out and take for your fantasy roster. I don't think anything will come of this guy. I would definitely stay clear of Britton Strange, and don't even try to get cute and add him to your roster. So let's go over the last guy we're going to talk about in this video in the second round. At 63 overall, I think the Denver Broncos took Marvin Mims Jr. So let's go ahead and look at the depth chart here. We got Russell Wilson being the starting quarterback, Jarrett Stidham behind him. We don't really know what's going to pan out. I think Russell Wilson's definitely getting the first crack, but Sean Payton's not sold on Russell Wilson. He's going to give him every opportunity to succeed. We'll see what happens. Javonte Williams, I'm hoping he's going to be healthy to start the season, and Samaje Perine, they ended up getting over from the Bengals. At wide receiver, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, I do have ahead. I do think that Marvin Mims will beat out Tim Patrick to be that third wide receiver on this team. Marvin Mims has good speed. He's got the hands. He's got all the abilities to be successful for fantasy football. I do like him to be some type of a factor this season, and I think he's somebody, if you're able to grab later on in your drafts, I think he's somebody you'll end up at least being able to put into your flex and be kind of a viable week in and week out type of option for you. So let's go ahead and go over, there's 4 players out of this whole second round that I think that you can take on your fantasy roster and it can be relevant for you. First guy I'm going to talk about is in the second round, pick number 34. That's going to be Sam Laporta. Like I was saying earlier, Laporta should have an early role on this offense, especially with Jameson Williams missing just due to being suspended. Sam Laporta will be the number 2 option on this team behind Amon-Ra St. Brown. They're going to throw the ball. Jared Goff's going to put it in the air. Sam Laporta could be a benefactor for your fantasy team. Do yourself a favor, grab him later on in your drafts. You'll be glad that you did. Moving on to the next guy I think is going to be fantasy relevant. That's in round 2, obviously, pick 55. That's Rashee Rice, the guy who I believe could turn into the X wide receiver for Patrick Mahomes. He's got the ability, he's got the pedigree of the NFL, and he's got the hands, he's got the speeds, he's got the talent to make something happen. If he can show out, become Patrick Mahomes' main guy, he could be one of the steals of the draft for you. The next guy I'm going to go at pick 58 overall is Luke Schoonmaker for the Dallas Cowboys. I really like this landing spot for him. They had a huge need at tight end, and they have shown before to use the tight end spot with Dalton Schultz. So I think Schoonmaker can turn into a Dalton Schultz-like tight end for you. And if he does, then your fantasy roster is going to benefit heavily because it doesn't cost a lot to grab Luke Schoonmaker on your roster. The last guy at pick 63, I'm going to say Marvin Mims Jr. I do think the Broncos got themselves a nice wide receiver. When we talk about Marvin Mims, he's got all the abilities to be a good wide receiver. He should easily be the third wide receiver on this team. I don't see Tim Patrick holding him back whatsoever. Draft Marvin Mims in your roster and in your leagues. As always, thank you for watching the video. If you hadn't hit that subscribe button, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button. It's going to really help you out prepare for your league this year. Now that we've been pumping out weekly videos week in and week out to help you succeed and ultimately hold up the trophy for your league. I can't wait to see you guys on the next video. We'll see you guys next time.